and welcome to English for You. I'm Kat.
Wait, I'm sorry. You're who?
I'm Seb, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm Kat.
Yes.
He's Seb.
Yes.
Yeah, you just, you made a nice little mess up there.
Yeah, I do that a lot, actually. I have a tendency to stumble over my words.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You mess up when you talk a lot?
Yes, it's like my mouth has two left feet, I'm just...
like if you were to dance, but with your words, maybe you will fall over a lot.
Yes, exactly. I'm always misspeaking. I'm always saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you ever misspeak?
I do sometimes. Like there will be a time when I try to say two words and I mix up the first letters. I don't know what that's called, but it happens sometimes.
I do that sometimes when I'm writing. Or I will write a letter and the pen will go in the opposite direction. So sometimes I write the word red with a G.
Reg?
I write reg.
Reg?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I have a degree and I can't spell a 3-letter word.
I mean, okay, yeah. D, P, Q, and what is it? D, B, Q, and P. They're all
of those I go the opposite.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're actually talking about language mistakes today. So Seb called himself my name on purpose because we're trying to introduce to you about our article that we introduced some funny language mistakes. And we have 3 different kinds, but today in day 1, we're only going to introduce you to the first one because probably it's the one that we make most often, I think.
Yes.
I don't know about in Chinese, but in English, this is definitely true.
Very true.
All right, so let's take a look at the article and find out more.
Reading. Eat, drink, and be merry with English acorns. You may have heard it before. A friend is talking and they say something odd. Their words don't sound quite right, but somehow they still make sense. You probably just heard your friend make an eggcorn. An eggcorn isn't a food, it's actually a word for an interesting error in English. People hear one word or phrase and accidentally exchange it for similar-sounding words. Professor Geoffrey Pullum, a professor of linguistics, named this kind of mistake an eggcorn after a woman made one. The word for an oak tree seed is acorn, but the woman thought it was egg corn. This isn't completely silly, though. Eggs are the first stage of animal life, and corn is a seed, so egg corn still fits the meaning. This is the defining feature of eggcorns. They're mistakes, but the mistakes still make some sense. A common example is Alzheimer's disease. This disease is named after the doctor who discovered it. However, it's frequently seen in the elderly, so some people think it's called old-timers disease instead. Another is the phrase, for all intents and purposes. A common eggcorn of this is, for all intensive purposes. Don't get confused by these word mix-ups.
Okay, so our article starts like this. You may have heard it before. A friend is talking and they say something odd. Okay, yeah, I definitely have had that happen before,
Yes.
Like something strange, something that makes you think, huh? Did I just hear that right? Have I got some dust, some pollen in my ear or something like that? Is something blocking this? Because my friend said something very strange. They said something very odd. Now, odd is an adjective. It's spelled with 2 Ds, O-D-D. And it means strange or unusual, normally unexpected. So, for example, if you walked into school in the morning and you said, "Good night, Mum," to your teacher, that would be an odd thing to say,
Yeah.
Because unless your teacher is your mum and you're going to the school to sleep, you wouldn't say that, would you? You would say, "Good morning, teacher," or "Hi." That's a strange thing to say. So if somebody says something odd, it's confusing, it's unexpected, it doesn't make sense. A similar word to odd is oddball, and that's actually a person who's strange or eccentric. So I always think of Jim Carrey when I think of oddballs.
Yes.
Yes, because he's very strange.
He's an oddball.
Like The Mask or something, like movies like that, where he's just...
kind of just a weirdo, but in a fun way.
Yeah, like it's oddball is not that negative. I feel like it's kind of it's like a playful punch in the arm.
Exactly.
Yeah, you oddball. Anyway, our example sentence for odd is, I thought Susie's house was kind of odd. All her furniture was bright pink with yellow spots.
That does sound pretty odd.
Yeah, it's very odd.
So if your friend is speaking and they say something odd, you might go, huh? So you like have a question mark over your head, kind of. Their words don't sound quite right, but somehow they still make sense. Have you ever had that happen?
I have, and until I read this article, I didn't know what to call it.
Now you know, but we're going to get into that. First, we need to go and look at the word somehow. What does that mean? The word somehow is the combination of some and how. So how is kind of one of these question words, and some you can think of as kind of the answer. When you say something somehow happens, or somebody somehow does something, it means it's in a way that you're not quite sure how, or it's not known how. Like, you don't know how it happened, but it happened, and you don't need to explain it any further. You can just say, somehow, this is the thing. So an example sentence, I got very lost on the way back from school, but still found my way home somehow. So we don't know how, but we know it happened. All right, so we somehow understand our friend, right? Because what they said still makes sense. To make sense means something still has a clear meaning. It's easy to understand. You can be like, oh, I get you. I understand.
It's logical.
That makes sense. But it's odd, right?
Right. So it's weird,
but it's kind of works. It's wrong, but
you
it's
might
right.
not say anything, You'll be like, oh, whatever. It's not that weird. It's just like a bit strange.
Exactly.
Anyway, you probably just heard your friend make an eggcorn.
Eggcorn?
An eggcorn? I don't make an eggcorn. That sounds quite odd itself.
It sounds like cooking.
We're talking about food? Yeah.
No, we are not talking about food. We're actually talking about acorns, but that's a little bit different thing. So the article says an eggcorn isn't a food. It's actually a word for an interesting error in English. So
I see.
It's a word for a kind of mistake, an error, which is something we do a lot when we talk.
Right. So actually, people hear one word or phrase and accidentally exchange it for similar sounding words. So like the title of this article is Eat, Drink and Be Merry, but it should be Eat, Drink and Be Merry.
Yes. Well, I expected you to say that two different ways because I thought British people say marry and then merry, right?
No, but the name we say Mary.
Oh, really? Yes. Okay. My bad. But anyway, it's M-A-R-Y and M-E-R-R-Y.
Yes, exactly. So Mary, I guess my accent kind of hides it. I should not be teaching this article. Anyway, let's cut now and look at our next word, accidentally. Okay, so accidentally is an adverb, and when you do something accidentally, you do it without meaning to. So, for example, you leave your school bag on the bus. That's obviously going to be an accident. You did that accidentally. Why would you put your bag down on the seat and deliberately get off the bus? No, you wouldn't do that, would you? Another example would be accidentally leaving your house without your keys. If you do that, then you left the house and then you think, oh no, my keys are still inside. I didn't mean to do that. And now I have to, wait for my friend to get home or my parents to get home and let me in. So that is another example of an accident. Now, the opposite of accidentally, I actually just said, is deliberately. When you deliberately do something, you purposefully do it. You want to do that and you take action to do a thing. Another similar word is incident. Now, difference between an accident and an incident is that accidents have to happen with no intent at all. They have to be completely by accident. So, for example, a bank robbery is an incident. Somebody went in and wanted to steal from the bank, so it can't be an accident, it's an incident. Our example sentence for accidentally is, Emma accidentally set her alarm for 7 p.m., so she slept in too late.
All right, so we know that when you make an eggcorn, you are accidentally doing something, like you are accidentally changing two words together or changing them with each other. So Professor Jeffrey Pullum, a professor of linguistics, named this kind of mistake an eggcorn after a woman made one. So he heard that somebody made this kind of error and he decided, this is an interesting thing. I'm going to name it after the word that she said. So the word was eggcorn. So He's a professor. A professor is a teacher, especially someone who teaches at a college or university, and they're usually the highest rank there. Usually, professors will have a PhD, which is a doctor's degree. That means that they've studied almost as much as anybody can study in school, and they are an expert. They are an expert in their field. They know everything there is to know about their specialization. And so, yeah, they're people you can depend on to really know what they're talking about, and that's why they get to name words. So an example sentence, my history professor knows so much about Asian history. He can explain any event in great detail. So what is he a professor of? Professor of linguistics. I love linguistics. This is my field. I actually have a master's in linguistics. I couldn't be a professor, but I could probably be an adjunct professor, you know, like if a lower ranking professor. Linguistics is the field of language studies. It's 语言学. Now, in this field, you learn how languages work, how people use them, how we learn them, how we teach them, all kinds of things, where words come from. So that's why a professor of linguistics would be teaching language and they would name words.
Exactly. So he was kind of looking at how people hear words and the ways that they will then say the words afterwards.
Yes.
You know, like they take them on board and say them out wrong. And that's an interesting thing to study for linguistics because you can see how words change over time. Sometimes words completely change over a couple of hundred years.
Yeah.
So what was the word she was saying? Acorn. The word for an oak tree seed is acorn. But the woman thought it was eggcorn. And that's actually an interesting association. And we'll get onto that in a minute. There's a reason why this still makes sense.
Yeah.
But what is an acorn? It is a seed that grows on oak trees. So it kind of, to me, always looks like an egg in a cup.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, you're right.
Or like an egg wearing a little hat.
Yeah.
So like a beret, like a French hat.
They're very cute.
They're very cute. So they're just these little seeds, and squirrels like to eat them. That's all you can really say about acorns.
If you think about Chip and Dale, I think acorns are their favorite food. Like those little Disney chipmunks, Chip and Dale, they love acorns. They try to get all the acorns. But it does sound a lot like eggcorn.
It does sound a lot like acorn.
Yeah, and so that's why the article says this isn't completely silly, though. Silly, like cuckoo, crazy, why are you doing this weird mix-up?
Exactly. So eggs are the first stage of animal life, and corn is a seed, which is the first stage of plant life.
Yeah.
So eggcorn still fits the meaning.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's the tree is going to come out of this egg, this little seed.
A little tree egg.
This tree egg, exactly. And that reminds me of another one, espresso.
Oh my God.
Cafe.
I know so many people who say this.
I said this for a long time.
Can I get an espresso? Yeah, no.
Everyone says this in the UK, actually. We
in the
all
US too.
mishear. Everybody, when they're a kid, they mishear the name of this word, which is espresso. It's a tiny little coffee. And they think it's espresso. So people always say espresso. And yeah, now you can look down on anybody who says espresso.
Yeah, but it still makes sense to say espresso, kind of, because express means fast.
Yes.
And you get an espresso very quickly.
It's a quick cup of coffee to drink.
You just, that's it.
Done.
And so now we know where the word eggcorn came from, and we know it came from acorn, and why it still makes sense. This is the defining feature of eggcorns. They're mistakes, but the mistakes still make some sense.
Exactly.
Interesting.
A common example is Alzheimer's disease. This disease is named after the doctor who discovered it. So name after there means when something is created or discovered, it's given the name of something else. So it takes the name of something that already exists. So Dr. Alzheimer discovered Alzheimer's disease, so it's called Alzheimer's disease.
Right, basically. Just like other diseases, like you might have, what would it be? Parkinson's disease, that's named after a person too. There's a lot of diseases named after people. However, I mean, most people I think I know call it Alzheimer's disease because they know. However, it's frequently seen in the elderly, older people. So some people think it's called old-timers disease instead. That's interesting. Old-timers, Alzheimer's. It sounds a little bit alike, right?
I see. Yeah, that's the common thing because I have heard a few people saying old-timers disease before.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you thought you were saying Alzheimer's.
I thought people always get Alzheimer's. I was like, oh, is that common?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yes, no, old-timers disease. I've definitely heard that one before. And it does make sense. Anyway, let's take a look at this word frequently.
This word frequently that we see when we're talking about the elderly and Alzheimer's disease, frequently is an adverb that you can see by ly, and it means happening often. Here, we use it to mean mostly or often. So frequently is sort of a more formal way to say these words. You could say that frequently, Alzheimer's disease is seen in the elderly, but you could also say it's often seen in the elderly. These two words are almost the same here. Frequently means it happens a lot. So an example sentence, Ellie frequently visits the art museum to see the new paintings and statues that come through there. All right, so this word is frequently used to talk about old people, old-timers, as we would call them. So if you call somebody an old-timer, it's like a casual term, sort of an endearing term for an elderly person. You might say this about your grandpa or to your grandpa. If you were my grandpa, I'd say, hey, old-timer, how you doing?
Yeah, it's like a fun little tease kind of a phrase.
Yep.
So the article continues. Another is the phrase for all intents and purposes.
Oh. I know a lot of people who mess this one up. Yeah. Do you?
Guilty. Yes. Oh. When I read this article, I was like, oh, that's how you say it. Okay. So for all intents and purposes, we'll get on to what I thought it was in a minute. That means essentially or in effect. So in every practical sense. So for all intents and purposes, the case is closed. We are finished. And I actually thought you spelled this very differently. You can tell them what it is.
I think I know, because most people have a different idea of what this actually is. If you haven't seen the phrase in writing before and you've only heard it, it's very easy to get this mixed up because it's not something you actually, hear in another way or see written down a lot. It's sort of just something that people say, and they say it very quickly, like, for all intents and purposes, right? And you would hear that as intensive purposes.
Intensive, exactly.
So, as the article says, a common eggcorn of this is for all intensive purposes. And if you say them quickly, for all intents and purposes, they sound almost the same.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell the difference just now, actually. So intensive, we'll get on to why it's not actually that wrong, really, to say all intensive purposes, if you think about it. Because intensive is an adjective that means that there's a lot of something, normally in a very short amount of time or a lot at once. So if you take an intensive English course, for example, then you take English classes every single day for 6 hours a day, for 6 weeks, and you get really good at English, but you have to do a lot of work. Or if you do intensive exercise, then you do lots of very tiring exercise, like, I don't know, you run 30 kilometers, you climb up the side of Taipei 101. I don't know. That's intensive exercise.
It would
definitely.
be, for sure.
So those are like very tough things to do, right? You're doing a lot at once. And so the eggcorn still makes sense because like intensive is a lot, you're talking about every situation.
Right.
You're covering all your bases at the same time.
Exactly.
So that makes it all intensive purposes, or all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So our example sentence for intensive is, intensive study is required to pass this difficult course.
That's right. I remember taking some intensive courses in my day, like an intensive CELTA course. Probably a lot of people here come to take intensive Chinese courses, especially like the Mandarin Training Center at NTNU, those kind of places. So, and you can take an intensive English course if you need to, like, say, pass an exam in 2 months. Right. But it's not intensive, it's intense and, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. There's all sorts of different eggcorns. You might hear even really, really good native speakers. Like, I still make eggcorns sometimes. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But first we have to finish out our article. So we finish out today one by saying, don't get confused by these word mix-ups. So if you hear somebody making an eggcorn like this, you could correct them. You don't have to. It's not really going to make a difference. Unless they're writing an essay or something, they're going to get a grade, and then you want to correct them.
Exactly.
But if they're just talking, it's not really a big deal, unless it bothers you.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Relax and listen to our For You Chat question.
Okay. Well, let's go right to it.
For You Chat.
All right, our For You Chat question today is a one that I think anybody can relate to. When was the last time you made a silly mistake while speaking your first language? What happened?
Oh, I think do this quite a lot with idioms and sayings.
Oh, really?
Yes. So the other day I was talking to a friend and I used this idiom correctly, but I said it wrong.
What did you say?
So she was telling me about how she'd like told a secret or something like that, or she'd been gossiping. And I said, you know what they say? Loose hips sink ships.
Okay. Okay,
It's
loose hips.
Loose hips. It's loose lips.
Loose lips.
Loose lips sink ships.
Yes,
Yeah.
because loose lips means that you talk a lot, you say
Yes,
too much.
and cause problems.
Yeah, but loose hips is like your hips move a lot. That's hilarious. That's really
Yes.
funny. Oh, man.
Do you have any?
I mean, I can think of when I was a little kid, I used to say, or maybe not even a little kid, like just when I was a kid, I used to say certain words where if you read the word, but you never hear it, you might say it weird. So French words, you know what hors d'oeuvres are?
Those little things that you eat at like a dinner party before you sit down. Yeah.
I used to think it was called horsed overs.
Horsed over.
Horsed overs, because it's got an H and a V.
It makes a lot of sense.
If you don't know how to speak French or don't know how to say French words, you will think it looks like horsed overs, not hors d'oeuvres.
To be honest, I think it's the hardest thing to spell in English. It's hors d'oeuvres. I can't spell hors d'oeuvres.
God. I'm not going to try.
I just write snacks. You know, if somebody says write down hors d'oeuvres.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that's all the time we have for today's episode. We've got a lot more linguistic fun to have tomorrow.
Yeah, so in day 2, we're going to introduce you to even funnier stuff.
Yes, so join us tomorrow.
Yeah, come right back and we'll have more fun. All right, see you for day 2. Bye!
Bye!
Vocabulary Review.
Odd. It is odd that the lights in that house are on. I thought no one lived there. Somehow. Evan didn't study at all, but he still somehow passed his English exam. Accidentally. Ryan accidentally stepped on Lisa's foot. He didn't mean to do it. Professor. Music history was a really fun university course, and the professor taught us a lot. Frequently. My trip to London wasn't much fun because it rained frequently while I was there. Intensive. This intensive language course only lasts 6 weeks, but you'll learn a lot from it.
智慧小补帖
Linguistics. Acorn. For all intents and purposes.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net